The Wonderful World of Darklords. Report 104. The Tri-State Area. In a reasonable world, the Tri-State Area would be regarded as a hub of innovation on par with Darkon, Haslan, or Lamortia. By the time I completed my survey of the domain, I had seen wonders that would make Kevin Flynn weep with envy. However, the Tri-State Area is anything but reasonable. While its artificers are constantly building inventions and innators that push the boundaries of magic theory, these creations rarely last more than a few hours, destroyed either by random circumstance or seemingly deliberate self-sabotage.
Welcome to Wonderful World of Darklords. I'm Tom.
I'm Rachel.
And we're discussing how to convert Disney movies to Ravenloft Domains of Dread, which is incredible. And by incredible, I mean completely credible.
Along the way, we'll look at the Darklord, the domain itself, and some plot hooks and adaptation ideas to integrate this setting into your own campaign.
Today's episode, Phineas and Ferb.
But isn't Phineas and Ferb a little silly to be a Ravenloft domain?
Yes. Yes, it is. Couple of disclaimers right up front.
Yes.
First off, you might be able to tell from hearing our introduction, we are deep in cold and flu season.
It's apparently just a tradition now that we record our April Fool's episode while drinking hot toddies, even if we don't have a Darklord obsessed with honey.
Yes, yes. But we are deep in cold and flu season, and we are both suffering from various effects, being on the tail end or the start end of something. Apologies if our voices are not as melodious as usual.
Tom sounds like he's being asshole a little early.
Yeah, a little early. And second off, happy April Fool's Day.
Woo!
But from the fact that we open with a disclaimer, that's already something different from what we've done in the past with our April Fool's episode.
Yes.
Because this is an April Fool's episode, but it's also not an April Fool's episode.
Yes.
Because in the past, we've always done the kind of take something extremely silly that's absurd to be a Ravenloft domain and done it kind of deadpan for like 20-ish minutes.
Which was very confusing when we got a YouTube channel and uploaded our backlog on there.
They were not dated, yeah.
They were not dated. So Winnie the Pooh still dropped on April Fool's Day and is properly dated.
Yeah.
But Cars was just a random.
People that were like, what? But obviously the fact I'm just opening with a disclaimer, we are not doing that. And that is because, as we said, this is sort of an April Fool's Day episode because it is absurd to do Phineas and Ferb. Phineas and Ferb as anything Ravenloft adjacent. But it's also not.
Yes. Because this isn't really our April Fool's Day episode per se. This is our episode for you to run an April Fool's Day session. Because on the one hand, Phineas and Ferb is ridiculous for a domain.
Yes.
On the other hand, it's ridiculously perfect for a domain. It is such an amazing, silly joke domain to pull out. Like, your PCs have just finished, like, this grueling session,
right.
like, slogging through man's inhumanity to man in Falkovnia or whatever, enduring all these, like, awful Borkin politics or, extreme Valichan gore, and you're like,
yeah,
I just want to give them a break. So then they sweep them up and drop them in the Tri-State
area. And the thing of it is, it's ridiculous to do this as a Ravenloft domain. But it's not, because it actually does fit a lot of our criteria of a classic Ravenloft domain. Especially the man, the myth, the legend. Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz.
Yes.
He is absurd, and yet he is a Darklord.
He absolutely
just legit,
is.
Not a joke.
No,
he just
absolutely
is a Darklord.
He's the world's saddest Darklord.
But he is. So, we kind of are going to do here is not do this sort of deadpan, the absurdity of Mater or Winnie the Pooh being a Darklord, because Dr. Doofenshmirtz is a straight Darklord. But for a couple of reasons, this isn't going to be a normal Wonderful World of Darklords episode either, because it's Phineas and Ferb.
It's Phineas. Like, you don't want us to do the dark and edgy version of the Tri-State Area, and that's not what we're here for either. We're not doing it dark and edgy.
Thing that would be.
Gosh.
So, the key thing here is we are going to talk about Doofenshmirtz as a Darklord.
Because that's just great.
But the main thing here is for that kind of aforementioned April Fool's episode, we're going to talk about how you could run a Phineas and Ferb inspired adventure, how you could run a Phineas and Ferb session for any D&D context, but especially in the context of Ravenloft.
Yes.
Before we get into the details of running that adventure, let's talk about our darklord for a section we like to call
Doofenshmirtz Darklord Incorporated. The Lord. By far the most brilliant artificers of the tri-state area are two brothers named Phineas and Ferb, whose dazzling but ephemeral inventions provide wonder and delight to anyone who is willing to enjoy them. A far more puzzling and contradictory figure is Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz, a scientist from Gimmelshtump who somehow combines the brilliance of Robert Callahan with the efficacy of Prince John. Doofenshmirtz continually revisits the same self-destructive patterns of behavior, constructing elaborate magical rituals to accomplish some self-aggrandizing purpose or avenge some petty slight, only for them to backfire spectacularly after interference from an adventurer, usually his nemesis, a creature called Perry the platypus that seems like a cross between a duck and a beaver. Doofenshmirtz has particular animosity for his brother, the darling of his parents, and desperately wants his only child to carry on his legacy of evil despite her lack of enthusiasm for it. Although it is clear to everyone around him that his schemes will never come to fruition, he continues to torment himself with the belief that surely this time the results will be different. I cannot imagine I will ever encounter another individual with this particular collection of unlovely traits.
So, the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz, Strudel Cutie 4427.
I think I've just found the joke number for this episode.
Ah, yes, perfect. And this is the part that's sort of not a joke, except for the fact that it's a joke.
Ridiculous.
In that it's funny, inherently absurdly hilarious, but also straightforwardly our darklord.
Mm-hmm.
Heinz Doofenshmirtz is an absurd darklord, but he is 100% a darklord.
Yeah. Candace actually is also 100% a darklord. She is the author of her own misfortune and a hell of her own creation, and if she just chilled the frack out and enjoyed what Phineas and Ferb were doing, 90% of the episodes would be fine. It's still... that stuff with Mount Rushmore, that's real frustrating, Candace. I'm sorry. You wanted to show your mom this cool thing your brothers did for you. But, 90% of the time, she'd be happy.
Yep. But if you are a millennial or a parent of children growing up in the millennial era, you know who Phineas and Ferb are.
Or if you're older Gen Z.
But you might not know what a darklord is. So, Rachel, what is a darklord?
Well, a darklord is an evil being who commits some kind of act of ultimate darkness that causes the dark powers to say, why, hello, new friend, we want to play with you forever. And so they pluck that evil being up and place them in a domain which is a hell tailor-made just for them. There are some really great Dark Lords, there are some not so great Dark Lords. Normally, in our April Fool's Day episodes, we get a little silly here. We talk about one of the, lesser Dark Lords. But in this case, if you're a big fan of Phineas and Ferb, this might actually be your first episode, and we are kind of playing it straight. So we're not going to do one of the, random Dark Lords. We are going to do the Dark Lord, Strahd von Zarovich. We have 4 qualities that we believe separate the Strahds from the Uruk von Karkovs and, other joke Dark Lords. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about how those 4 qualities apply to Strahd, and then about how they do or don't apply to Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
They do.
Well, except for the first one.
Except for the first one.
Which is the act of ultimate darkness.
Uh-huh.
They commit some kind of specific evil act that draws the dark powers' attention. On Doofenshmirtz, because he's silly. He hasn't done anything this bad.
Yes.
Strahd has, which is killing his brother because he wanted to get with his brother's fiancée. Our second element from here on out, we're straight Doofenshmirtz land. Our second element is what they call in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft the Torment, because we're a Disney podcast. We call it They Got What They Wanted, They Lost What They Had. We could also call it Curse You, Perry the Platypus. In Strahd's case, it's congratulations, your brother's out of the way, so there's nothing standing between you and Tatiana, except you're too Strahd for Tatiana, and you always will be. Our third element is an element of tragedy and relatability. They're...
boy, howdy, Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
Boy, howdy, Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
We barely need to do that one.
Yeah, there's something about them that makes us win some sympathy, like the fact that they have to wake up every day and be Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
Behind Doofenshmirtz.
And in Strahd's case, it's that unrequited love sucks. And then our fourth quality is that the domain reflects the Dark Lord and their curse in some way. Strahd is the Dark Lord of spooky, gothic, Vampire Land. He is not the Dark Lord of the Tri-State area. And also, Barovia reflects that curse of loneliness, so that he killed his brother, he's not getting to be with Tatiana, he's alone, and all the people in Barovia are, boring and not able to be intellectual equals to him, even if he were to seek out somebody else. And that was a little bit more scattershot than those summaries usually are, but I want so much Dayquil, guys. Like, the hot toddy hasn't even hit yet. This is
and
all
the spirit
Dayquil.
of April Fools. Woo!
This is all Dayquil talking.
So, Dr. Doofenshmirtz has, sort of, all of these 4.
Mm-hmm.
But the character is so ridiculous, he doesn't just have one of these. A lot of these are iterated.
Yeah.
And this is our big thing with Active Ultimate Darkness. You could probably pull out a lot of random stuff from random episodes and say, that's his Active Ultimate Darkness. Trying to cover his brother in pigeon poos.
Well, I mean, clearly his Active Ultimate Darkness is cheating on Perry with Peter the Panda.
Yes.
Obviously.
So, if you are doing this and you need an Active Ultimate Darkness for whatever reason, because you want to have Dr. Doofenshmirtz as a full character sheet Ravenloft Darklord.
And you want to, know what his Active Ultimate Darkness is in your head, rather than just say, yeah, sure, he had one somewhere.
You just pick one, right? You have 4 seasons of episodes of both him doing evil things in the present and him occasionally monologuing about evil things he did in the past, and you just pick what you think is funniest.
Yeah, because normally, even with Dark Lords who have a lot of potential acts of ultimate darkness, we pick one. But this, it's Roger Rabbit. It's rule of funny here. Like, the act of ultimate darkness that we pick is probably not going to be your favorite Dr. Doofenshmirtz moment. Your favorite Dr. Doofenshmirtz moment is his act of ultimate darkness. Whatever that is. He's your Dark Lord.
Or the one that's going to be funniest to your PCs.
Yes.
It's going to resonate the most with them as a hilariously petty nonsense. Then we have the Torment. Now we're getting into the, no, this is just every check, every box. Got what he wanted, lost what he had. He gets to devote his life to science and revenge. He never really has to worry about money. He always has the resources for Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated. Whenever he has a petty slight or grudge, he can always spend weeks planning and concocting a grandiose plan to get revenge on those slights. But, of course, he will always be thwarted by Perry the Platypus.
By Perry the Platypus.
And
Perry the Platypus.
He will never execute his plans. He will never, ever execute a single one of these elaborate plans. Honestly, is there any more perfect personification of the Torment than the self-destruct button?
Yeah.
That, he will build the Inator to give him exactly what he wants, and he will about to operate it, but there is a self-destruct button, and he can't not put in a self-destruct button because of his nature.
Yeah, no, you absolutely, we're going to talk more about this later, but you absolutely could, if you wanted to, for your comedy session, rather than doing straight-up Phineas and Ferb, you could, do some goofy alternate reality drinking game version where, Asselin is Dr. Doofenshmirtz, and he's got his big escape Ravenloft Inator, but they have self-destruct
a self-destruct
buttons.
button. Curse you, Perry the Platypus. So, then we have the element of tragedy and relatability.
Oh, man.
Which, this is why he's still so beloved. This is why years and years and years after the show's over, they put nightmarish looking live action Doofenshmirtz in the Oogie Boogie Halloween Disneyland thing.
I mean, my aunt has a Dr. Doofenshmirtz coffee mug, and, I believe she got exposed to Phineas and Ferb through her grandkids.
Yeah.
This isn't even, my cousin was too old to watch Phineas and Ferb, but it doesn't matter. My aunt has a Dr. Doofenshmirtz mug, because he's so great.
And this is, once again, the element of tragedy. He is just the most deeply tragic.
Oh my gosh.
This is a Kohler generational reference bingo sheet. He is the Trix Rabbit. He is just he is so absolute in his failure that we can't help but ache for him a little bit every failure.
Yeah.
And the element of relatability, we all have a little Dr. Doofenshmirtz inside of us. He might have built an Inator to put a little Dr. Doofenshmirtz inside of everyone.
Except that it wouldn't have worked, so never mind.
But we all, it speaks so much to us that he is just such a absurd, petty little man. Mm-hmm. Because we all have our absurd, petty self.
And fellow parents, his daughter will never think he's cool.
Yeah. And so all of us want to build a machine to avenge the petty slights of life in this fallen world.
Or to make everyone forget the stupid thing we did.
Yes, right. You did a dumb thing. It showed up on the internet, and you were going to destroy the internet to make that not happen. Or even like, you have musical instruments you don't like, and you're going to build a machine to destroy all the musical instruments you don't like. Or you're going to build giant robots to get revenge on a delivery driver who was rude to you.
Yes.
Just, we all have that Dr. Doofenshmirtz inside of us. And then finally, our fourth quality, the domain reflecting the Dark Lord's personality or curse. And it's the idea of invention and imagination. That this is the silly, stupid Lamordia. This is just a domain of crazy mad science and children building rocket ships and roller coasters and robots, and this domain of invention and expressing invention, but also that this is a domain of these cycles of behavior.
Yeah, like, more than any... Like, this is almost a parody of, like, the Groundhog Day nature of 5-year Ravenloft. That, like, it is just the same story iterated differently every
again
day.
And again and again. It's not pure, like, time loop. It's like, these are all different. And I love it even is a perfect example, and this even brings in Candace, our much more tragic potential Dark Lord. But, like, the idea that the Dark Lords are trapped in these cycles and they will always try and they will always fail. And it is because of who they are. Like, Aslan can't stop being Aslan. Strahd can't stop being Strahd.
In the movie, Candace put herself in a literal Groundhog Day loop and still couldn't bust Phineas and Ferb.
Yes. And the idea that, yes, Dr. Doofenshmirtz will always build an inator to avenge some petty slight or do something or have some grandiose plan to get power to rule the tri-state area. And it will always fail because he's Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
Yes.
And he will always build a self-destruct button and do it because he's Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
Strahd will never get to Iana because he's Strahd.
And Candace will always, like Rachel was saying, she could have a great summer of wonder and adventure. Or she could just have a perfectly lovely summer of hanging out with Stacy and dating Jeremy. And just having a really chill teenage girl summer. But she won't because she's Candace.
Also, sidebar, I just need to address the fact that I love that Jeremy loves her not in spite of, but
yes, her Candace-ness.
But my absolute favorite moment for them is, I gotta go bust my brother, as it runs off, and Jeremy goes, that's my girl.
Yeah.
Just,
That's the genius of it. So, this is the key. And this is the thing. And this is Aslan. And this is Strahd. And this is every Dark Lord is no. They will always do this. And they will always fail because of who they are. And so that we have Dr. Doofenshmirtz's cycle. We have Candace's cycle. It's kind of like weirdly the overlap between like your classic sitcom and your Ravenloft domain.
Yeah.
Of it is kind of the same personalities having the same relations. Iterated.
The same conflicts.
The same conflicts, just iterated again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
That, from a very black humor point of view, Strahd's basically living in a sitcom. Like,
oh, man.
Yeah.
Standing outside of Tiana's window holding a boombox.
Yes, and then, like,
knocking on her and Sergei's door, and she opens and he's holding a sign that says, Saints Carolers.
He's holding the boombox, and he calls her, and she opens the window, and a flower pot's knocked over and falls on his head. I'm like, so this is, as we said, it is ridiculous, it is absurd, it is also a perfect Ravenloft domain.
Yes.
And Dr. Doofenshmirtz is ridiculous and absurd and a perfect, authentic 100% Dark Lord.
Yes.
So, as a Dark Lord, let's talk about how, if you want to have him as a combat encounter, if you want to have the full stat block,
which could be gloriously silly,
we got this. So I'm going to say the Artificer from Emperor.
Pretty obvious reasons.
Pretty obvious reasons. He, as powers, we kind of just have two. And one is unlimited resources for technology. He can build any inator to do anything he can imagine. He is, by one metric, the greatest scientist to ever live.
Yeah.
He's the greatest artificer in all of Ravenloft.
Like
he can build anything.
Victra can't build this stuff.
No, yeah. She can't build a pigeon mind control machine. So, He can build any inator, it can do anything, but there's always the obvious self-destruct button. There's always the fail point. He cannot build an inator without building in a self-destruct button.
Mm-hmm.
And he will always trip himself up in his grandiose supervillainy.
And something about it will cause the inator to fire on him or make people forget aglets instead of the silly thing that he did. Or,
He designed the Death Star. And any Ravenloft wizard or artificer say they designed the Death Star.
Uh-huh.
So, he also has a robot helper named Norm.
Yes.
And closing the borders, this is one of those examples of what we mean by the iterated nature, how this kind of is the problem with a show versus a movie. That we don't just have one closing the borders.
Yeah. And once again, we don't. Whatever closing the borders we pick, you're going to be like, oh man, they referenced that episode, and not the episode I wanted them to reference.
So just the closing the borders is whatever it is. It is.
Yeah.
He closes it based on whatever his inator was.
Like, you could do it based on the current inator from the session that you're running, or if you want to have a shout out to, like, your favorite episode, or your what you know is your player's favorite episode. You know, they try to leave, and suddenly they can't leave because they're too busy dancing to the groovy beats of the platypus controlling them underneath the table.
Exactly. Or they can't help watch the viral video of him roller skating his underpants and falling in the toilet. The hypnotic. Just all of society is shutting down because all anyone can do is watch this video over and over again.
Or they're trapped in, ridiculous princess ball gowns and tripping over the hems. Just, whatever your players are going to dig.
And we had, in terms of quotes, we do want to give you a role-playing trait, ideal, bond, and flaw, if only so we get a chance to try out our raspy Doofenshmirtz impressions.
Wow, you're going to be Doofenshmirtz with vocal fry.
But this is like, with a movie, we can just look at the quotes and pick some options or talk through some things. But this is literally hundreds of lines of dialogue.
Yeah, and this is a silly joke episode.
Just to dig into psychology.
Yeah, we're not even going to do the thing where we each pick a line and then try to decide. We are doing the fait accompli that we did in our previous April Fool's Day episodes. Just because it's not Doofenshmirtz, we're not going to make this episode more than an hour long.
If the listening to us discuss the quotes for role-playing trait, ideal, bond, and flaw is interesting, and I am not convinced it is, then it is the discussion of the psychology.
Yeah.
And the dialogue, and how dialogue affects psychology, and that's not what you're here for. So we do have some pre-chosen role-playing trait, ideal, bond, and flaw for Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz.
All right. So our trait is very long.
Yes.
But number 1 is the only possible trait, and number 2, this is how your PCs are going to be.
Yeah. This is the perfect. Honestly, all of these are so good. These are much better than quotes we've had in the past with other serious Dark Lords because they're so perfectly reflective of the character.
Yes.
And this is both exactly how the PCs will interact with him and also perfectly reflective of his character.
Yes.
And why would I need an invisibility ray, you ask? Well, when those cute little fireside girls come by to sell their cupcakes or the raffle tickets or whatever, and you forget to close your shades, or they come to the front door and they can see you. They can see you right in there watching TV or whatever, and you can't pretend that you're not home because they can see you, and they have those big bleeding eyes making you feel guilty. So I'm just going to shoot them with the ray so I don't have to look at them.
That's just everything you need to know about Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
Going to create an invisibility ray so he doesn't feel guilty at the fireside girls selling raffle tickets or cookies.
Mm-hmm. Our ideal was the trickiest one, but then we finally found it. Oh, you think it's petty that I've held on to this grudge for so long? Well, it's not. It's evil or something. It's not petty.
Yes. That is the guiding principle. It's evil. It's not petty.
Or something.
It's not petty.
That bond, when I was going through Dr. Doofenshmirtz's quotes, I saw this one and immediately knew that this was going to be our bond, and I shared it with Tom, and he agreed wholeheartedly.
Barry the Platypus, you get back here and thwart me this instant. I mean, there is one relationship that is the most important relationship in his life in terms of this aspect.
Yes.
Like, emotionally, it's Vanessa, but in terms of his day-to-day life, the most important relationship is to Perry the Platypus.
And then finally, our flaw. Then I can go on to eliminate all the other annoyances that make my skin crawl, like, nature, zap, beauty, morning talk show hosts, yay, Soon there will be nothing that can withstand the wrath of Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz.
Yes. Just the pettiness, the inatorness, and the absurd Doofenshmirtzness.
And even, just the destructiveness. Just destroying nature and beauty because of petty annoyances. And ranking nature and beauty with morning talk show hosts.
Yes. So, that gives us our darklord write-up for Heinz Doofenshmirtz. And now, normally we would transition into
the land.
But we're not going to do that. You can go to the wiki, you can read all the locations in the tri-state area. There are so many. Mm-hmm. And that's not what you're here for. You don't just be like, the mall, and this, and the
this is what we're doing with Jeremy's house.
Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated. It's his lair. His lair actions.
He does have lair actions in Doofenshmirtz Evil.
He totally has a lair action of capture you.
Yes.
But capture you in a way that you will be able to escape after he's finished his monologue.
Yes, absolutely.
So instead, we're going to transition into our second part of the episode, which I hope, that was fun talking about Dr. Doofenshmirtz and his absurdity, but I hope this is full on, useful and really interesting from a kind of DM game story perspective. How to run a Phineas and Ferb game. Rachel, I know what we're going to do with it today.
Dread possibilities. Eventually, I discovered Dr. Doofenshmirtz's plan to use the Trendinator to travel back in time to Sergei von Zarovich's wedding, wearing a cape, a blood-red doublet, and a ruby amulet so that he could claim that Strahd stole his look. Of course, this could have had countless effects on the time stream that Doofenshmirtz never considered. I pressed the Trendinator's self-destruct button. That was anticlimactic. Mom! Tom and Rachel are looking for adventure in the Great White Somewhere!
I love you so much.
I love you too.
So trying to give advice on how to run a Phineas and Ferb style game, or even thinking about running a Phineas and Ferb style game, is a real challenge. And it's a real challenge for us as well. This was kind of why we did this, was we want to sort of challenge ourselves to that question of, is it even possible to suggest a Phineas and Ferb game?
It's we could do a joke session where we start talking about the tri-state area, playing it totally straight, but this is a much more fun question.
Right.
Not even in terms of making it for Ravenloft, but just in general, can you gamify Phineas and Ferb?
Yeah, and the real challenge is that Phineas and Ferb is such a perfect Swiss watch setting.
Yes.
That just every piece, every character, every plot element perfectly interlocks and creates the beautiful cycle that is an episode of Phineas and Ferb.
Yeah, and can you do that in improv?
Right, or even just, is there a way to have this story feature a group of heavily armed transients?
That too, yeah.
A lot of times, we're thinking about, okay, here are these main characters. Is there something that's like the PC analog? Mm-hmm. Are there a group of people that are like how they interact with the main characters is how the PCs are going to interact with the main characters? And there's not anything I can think of that would make a good PC analog that would be this sort of outsider who gets pulled into the story. Mm-hmm. And there is in the Mission Marvel, that's the closest thing there is the Mission Marvel. That's not what you want. You're not here for doing the Mission Marvel adventure.
You want it to be Phineas and Ferb, qua Phineas and Ferb.
Right. But if you want to do something, it could be something like the Mission Marvel as an analogy. But that's tricky because you also need your pre-existing villains. Because a big plot element is it's kind of Phineas and Ferb getting mixed up in the battle between the Marvel heroes and villains.
Right.
So if you want to have that, that's probably the easiest. If you're I just want to have a Phineas and Ferb session.
A goofy Phineas and Ferb get pulled in to help you fight Strahd.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have some villains, and somehow Dr. Doofenshmirtz gets mixed up with your villains, and Phineas and Ferb help you. And, but that could be a lot of fun. That could be a great April Fool's session. To suddenly spring Phineas and Ferb on your PCs.
That actually could be pretty great. That, Victra hires Dr. Doofenshmirtz as her new lab assistant. And,
yes, that could be really great. But in the episode, as we said, it's very built on the pre-existing stuff, and the Marvel guys are kind of NPCs. It really is about, as it should be, the show's Phineas and Ferb. It's about Phineas and Ferb. So, with a proper, a full Phineas and Ferb adventure. We want to give your PCs the full Phineas and Ferb adventure. But that's really challenging because each of those stories has two sides and they barely interact.
Yeah.
And like it'd be the easiest thing to just be Perry. Like Perry's the D&D character. Perry's the rogue / monk / paladin who's battling evil.
Yeah. So let's break it down what the perfect Swiss watch structure of a Phineas and Ferb episode
good thinking.
is actually with the two parts of it. So we've got Phineas and Ferb come up with their plan and Candace tries to bust them, and then Perry the platypus gets called by Major Monogram to like stop some plan of Dr. Doofenshmirtz's.
Right.
Or maybe Dr. Doofenshmirtz is just getting ready for a date. You know, sometimes that'll happen too.
Yep.
And then Dr. Doofenshmirtz will do his Inator, and Phineas and Ferb will do their, wonderful, amazing world of adventure, and Candace will be on the brink of busting them, and then Perry will stop Dr. Doofenshmirtz in some way that also undoes whatever it is that Phineas and Ferb were doing, so she can never bust them.
Yes.
And that's why, in a lot of ways, Candace is also a dark
yes. And, like, Phineas and Ferb are theoretical protagonists. They're the named characters, but really, like, you could never have them as PC analogs. Because, like, Phineas and Ferb, every episode, they decide to do something, and then they do it.
Yeah.
And then it disappears. And then they're, like, fine. And they're fine with it.
Yeah. In our book club of Dread, starting with Tower of Doom, we started talking about, like, who are the PCs in this story. And in Phineas and Ferb, like, honestly, the PCs are Dr. Doofenshmirtz, Perry the Platypus, and Candace. Phineas and Ferb are NPCs.
Those are the ones that do PC stuff. You can see, like, Candace rolls stuff. Candace makes plans. Candace overcomes obstacles. So, yeah. So the obvious thing, you could do the easiest thing in the world to have a sort of Perry the Platypus style, there's a Dr. Doofenshmirtz and you go stop him. But that's not the full experience. That's half the story. And if we want the full experience, we're like, we kind of thought of this as a 2-part story.
So we can't really get into the specifics of like exactly what adventures they're working on or whatever, because part of the fun there is going to be like what's going to be really fun for your PCs, what's going to be fun for your players. We do have a list of Dr. Doofenshmirtz plans.
Yes, we'll put it in the write-up.
And we'll mention a couple here. But for like what Phineas and Ferb are doing, like that's going to vary depending on your group. But the key here, because again, we were thinking about the fact that Candace is the PC. And we realized that what really needs to happen is that the PCs start as Candace. Yes. And that they hear about there is, like, some evil mad scientist doing mad scientist stuff. You know, they know they're in a domain that's like Lemornia. They don't realize it's silly, stupid Lemornia. And so they're like, okay, we gotta stop this, like, crazy mad scientist from doing whatever, like, evil things they're doing. But the people who are really obviously doing mad science are Phineas and Ferb, so they think that Phineas and Ferb are the evil mad scientists, and they're trying to bust them.
Yes! That's gotta be it.
Yes!
Or even just something like, it could be a thing where they get Linda Flynn Fletcher. Like, weird stuff is happening around her house. So she hires the PCs to, like, investigate and find the source of the weirdness. And they find out it's her son's doing all these crazy magical crafting or all those crazy inventions, things like that. But they can never prove it, or she doesn't believe them that it's her son's. Yes. And they always, like, disappears before they could prove it. But the key here is the PCs start trying to bust Phineas and Ferb.
Yes.
For one reason or another.
And Phineas and Ferb they're just, like, totally chill with this.
Yep, yeah.
And also, Tom, by the way, just for a little flavor thing, Tom in some Facebook group he was in, so was talking about, like, running a Phineas and Ferb style game, and you had an excellent thought on what Ferb's role needs to be.
He had one of the tavern to be like a bunch of Phineas and Ferb references. And he was asking for suggestions, and I said, Ferb would be totally silent, except he would occasionally, like, put in rules clarifications. Actually, if I can use an optional rule in 5th edition. So that could be a fun, like, just having Ferb be you getting to break the fourth wall.
Yes. And then somehow, like, after they like are working for a while trying to bust Phineas and Ferb, and then, you know, realize that they're in a Phineas and Ferb game at this point, then something with Phineas and Ferb's invention, like, gets them to Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
Right.
Like, maybe they're directly thematically related somehow, or maybe just, like, you're going after these kids building this ridiculous roller coaster, and then suddenly an invention comes up that's, like, you know, removing all the zinc from the world.
Right,
so
right.
Clearly that's going to be the thing that's more of an issue.
If your PCs are full on investigating evil science, it could be they investigate Phineas and Ferb, and then, like, they see the ray come from the Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated tower and, like, hit their thing and make it disappear.
Yes.
And that's like, oh, that's where we're supposed to go. That's
Yes.
that's the clue. Or it could be like Phineas and Ferb. We're like, oh yeah, we tried to do something, but we didn't have any zinc. It magically disappeared. We traced it to this place. Like, we built a zinc detector and traced it all to this place. Like, Phineas and Ferb give you that clue to find the sort of the actual thing you're after, which is Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
Mm-hmm. And then you go there yourself, possibly get brought in by Perry or Major Monogram. And then you get the very straightforward part 2. You're Perry, you stop Dr. Doofenshmirtz. You find out that he's got a horrible destructive invention for some stupidly petty reason.
Yes. That is then the critical. That's what makes this funny and Phineas and Ferby.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's just this evil artificer, and you track him to his lair, and then you fight him.
Yes. So we do, we're going to put them on the write-up, but we do have a couple of examples here. Aslan isn't answering any of his fan letters. So the Requiem drained the life force from the population of Illinook, which was 25,000 people. So Dr. Doofenshmirtz has built a machine that's going to drain the life force from 25,001 people to get Aslan's attention. But only a little bit. Like, it's just
a level of exhaustion.
Like, a little tired. He's not a monster or anything. Gosh.
I'm evil, but that's ridiculous. I think this was one of mine, the whole, it's a mass amnesia-nator, like he wants to just sort of wipe the memory of everyone in the area because his neighbor introduced himself to Dr. Doofenshmirtz, but Dr. Doofenshmirtz can't remember his name, and it's really awkward, so this way they'll have to introduce themselves again.
Yes. Or Vanessa said that he can't be a true, mad scientist, a darklord type because he doesn't have an undead army. And so he built an undead army-nator, but he accidentally built an undead arminator, and so it just, animated all of the arms.
Yes. There are stat blocks for that. Yes. You can do the crawling hand, severed arm stat block.
Or alternatively, he built it wrong and it just animated all of the meat at the butcher's shop.
Yes.
And now he's commanding an army of plucked turkeys. So you just something ridiculous to make it properly Phineas and Ferb-esque. And then you have a ridiculous fight, and you get to hit his self-destruct button, and Dr. Doofenshmirtz gets to yell curse you and your PC's names, and that's just going to be the best
feeling ever. The PC! Curse you, Barry the PC.
Yes! Curse you, Daryl the Druid!
And this is even great. I know one of your classic tips on combat is the whole, there should be a story and a goal more than just beat them to 0 hit points. Mm-hmm. And this has the great, he's got his robots, he's got his rays, he's got his traps, but the Inator has a giant self-destruct button on it. So, we're fighting and rolling initiative and we're punching him and he's punching us, but we just need to get to this self-destruct button.
Yes.
And the combat's over. And it's big and red and says self-destruct button on it.
Yes. And also, a thought that I had as we were coming up with ways to make this feel Phineas and Ferby is it could be a really fun shout-out if, at the beginning of the session, somebody's animal companion or familiar or whatever disappears.
Yes.
And then later they see them show up in a hat.
In a hat.
But it's clearly not them.
Yes.
It's an owl in a hat, but it's definitely not their owl.
Yeah. It's not Archimedes the owl, my familiar. No. It's an owl that looks exactly like Archimedes, but he has a hat.
Yes. Archimedes doesn't have a hat.
And you could make this a wisdom save, or you could just be like, no, they just don't.
Yes. It's like the 3 kobolds in a trench coat, but they automatically fail the save. They will never know this is Archimedes. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, Archimedes shows up again.
When they say, hey, where's Archimedes? And then Archimedes shows up again.
And all your players will know in their hearts that Archimedes is a member of Auka.
Yes.
Who doesn't want that?
So this could even be if you once again just want to do an April Fool's episode that sort of touches on Phineas and Ferb, that could be what gets you there.
Yes.
The wizard's familiar is actually a member of Oka, and they have to sort of help him fight Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
We also realized if having Aslan just straight up be Dr. Doofenshmirtz works perfectly.
Right, yeah.
Because he comes up with
bizarrely huge overlap.
Grandiose schemes that backfire horribly. And especially, the Requiem, not as much, but the Grand Conjunction. It was this whole thing in second edition that was he did this thing to try to rip Ravenloft apart and, ride out on the wave of energy. And there were these, 6 prophecies, and he was trying to fulfill them. And It actually says in the Mystopedia write-up, it's like, yeah, part of why he wants to do this is because he wants to escape, but part of why he wants to do this is because a necessary thing involved in fulfilling the prophecies is killing Strahd. And this is just like, he's going to destroy the world so that he can get back at his ex-boyfriend. I mean, not his ex-boyfriend. Read I Strahd the War with Aslan. They're totally exes.
Big X energy.
Big X energy.
The grand conjunction is the story of how these two made their breakup everyone's problem. Literally everyone's problem.
So yeah, if you wanted to just like run Aslan as Dr. Doofenshmirtz for a session, you could do a lot worse.
Have his giant alchemical engine that's reshaping things with a big self-destruct button.
Just play Skeever as Norm and Eric as Vanessa. It actually works really well.
Yeah. God, Dad. So embarrassing. So as we said, we gave you a couple of our potential Doofenshmirtz plans. We'll have a section in the write-up, which we'll link in the show notes. And hopefully this has given you some fun, some enjoyment, some thinking about how great Phineas and Ferb is, if nothing else.
You were also going to have stats for the Inator in the...
I am going to have a write-up for the Spellinator,
excellent,
yes, which is just a sort of Doofenshmirtz-inspired artifact you could use for his various Inators, if you like. And if they want to contact us and tell us about the various Inators they came up with, how could they do that?
Well, you can email us at wonderfulworldofdarklords@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Tumblr, or Patreon at Wonderful World of Dark Lords. On YouTube, we're just Wonderful World of Dark Lord, but look for Maleficent holding the apple. We're easy.
So, today, April 1st, our Listener's Choice poll opened.
Yes.
There will be a link in the show notes. We had our supporters in our Discord have voted on 4 potential things that we're going to make an episode about, but we are opening they picked the nominees, but we're opening the voting to everyone.
And hopefully there will be 2 sets of voting, because we don't know. We are recording this right before our Atlantis episode drops, so our GoFundMe hasn't gone live yet. So hopefully there are going to be 2 rounds of voting, 1 set of nominees from the Discord and 1 set of nominees from the Donors to Clinic. But I don't know. We'll see. There's going to be stuff up on the Patreon for voting, either way.
Either way, there will be a link and or links in the show notes here. Go click on which episode or episodes you would like us to do, and we'll close the voting at the end of April, and whichever episode or episodes got the most votes, we will make those our November episodes.
Yes.
So that's our tradition that we just did one time, but hopefully this will make it a tradition that November is our Listener's Choice episode.
And it's on Patreon, but it's open to everybody.
Yes,
so,
public
it's
post.
just, Patreon's kind of the closest thing we have to a website, so it's a public post. This is Future Rachel. We did reach our fundraising goal. Thank you so much to everybody who donated it. It means the world to us. There is only going to be voting for 1 episode on the Patreon right now, though, because we've decided the way that we're going to do it is we're going to have the patron-nominated Listener's Choice first, and then when that is over, we're going to do the fundraiser-nominated Listener's Choice, because that way the people who donated to the fundraiser get the chance to give a one-up potion to a nominee if they want to. If there's something that they saw, they're really excited about hearing an episode about it, and then it doesn't make it to the final on the Patreon poll, they can revive it. So you'll be seeing that either in May or at the end of April, depending on how the first round of voting goes. If it's something like last year where it was clear Spirited Away was going to win within about a week, then you'll be seeing it sooner rather than later. If it's neck and neck, then it might take a while to see how it shakes out.
If you like our adaptation of Phineas and Ferb, which I think was a pretty Herculean task, that's much harder, ironically, than Hercules, that
It was, yeah.
then we have other movies, horror movies I've adapted to horror mods on DM's Guild. Just look for more by this author with the show notes link, or go to DM's Guild and search for Tom Kohler. And if you like our consideration for this wonderful children's show, we have some resources for running spookier, more horror-adjacent things with younger players.
And speaking of spooky things for younger people, I have a picture book, Mother Ghost, Nursery Rhymes for Little Monsters. It's exactly what it sounds like. And I also have short stories for adults, many of which are available for free through my website, www.rachelkohler.com. Sadly, I don't think any of them connect to Phineas and Ferb.
Sadly.
Sadly.
So, Although we are doing this a little more seriously than our past April Fool's episode, this is still our April Fool's episode, and we have our proper April episode coming up in a couple of weeks. And we are continuing our April Misrule tradition. It is going to be a non-Disney movie that we are both very excited
We sure are.
to share with you. So until then, until next time, which will be much sooner than usual, thank you for listening and happy gaming.
Parting thoughts. I doubt that Dr. Doofenshmirtz will ever learn how pointless his grandiose plans are, no matter how many times he meets with abject failure. I would have enjoyed experiencing a few more of Phineas and Ferb's inventions, but the next location on my itinerary calls. Carrying a spinach puff as a mist-talisman, I prepared to enter the domain of Yzma, the domain designed specially for Yzma, Yzma's domain. That domain. Regards, D.
Urmodia, a land of innovation? Certainly my little scholar must be jesting. When a lord completely discounts the possibilities of progress, when the arcane arts are applied to a problem, their so-called innovations become nothing more than achieving goals magic could accomplish with a wave of the hand. As for Doofenshmirtz, clearly he is being directly harassed by our tormentor's agent, this Perry creature. Otherwise, one of his plans may actually succeed. One must continue to carry out their goals, just in case their tormentors happen to not be paying attention in any particular moment, and then success will be mine! I mean his. Perhaps. Someday. Also, I have it on good authority that Von Zarovich stole that look from Gundar, a far superior vampire lord.
This has been The Wonderful World of Darklords. We have no affiliation with Disney or Wizards of the Coast. All music recordings used in this episode are in the public domain and were obtained through museopen.org. Titles and links are in the show notes. Dialogue for Yensid was written by Aslan Rex himself, who you can follow on Tumblr at Darklord Aslan. The Wonderful World of Darklords logo was designed by Haylight Jones. You can find links to their work in the show notes. If you'd like to support the show, look for us on patreon.com or find our tip jar on Red Circle. Thanks for listening. Dad?
Oh, hi, Eric.
Dad, what are you doing?
Well, I'll be honest, I don't really understand. But I entered the mist. Now I'm Lord of the Land. And I've got magic I'm not learning.
What?
Magic I'm not learning. I've got magic I'm not learning. And I just can't stop.
Don't stop!
I can't stop. The dark powers haven't fettered me.
What?
The dark powers haven't fettered me. Now let me sum it up. It was a strange set of circumstances.
Strange set of circumstances.
I entered the mist. Now I'm Lord of the Land. Now I've got magic I'm not learning. And I just can't stop.
Don't stop! Don't stop!
No, I will always resist. But dark powers haven't fettered me from far beyond the mist.
The dark powers have enfettered him? What? Oh, I get it. Dark powers are a metaphor for whatever's keeping you down. Strahd's taxes are dark powers. Counterspells are all dark powers. And the gods are all dark powers.
No, I think my god is Jander.
Bad dice rolls are dark powers. And the Dark Lords are dark powers. But Isolde is an angel. To say otherwise is slander. Yeah, we've all got dark powers who've enfettered us.
Just me.
We all got dark powers who've enfettered us.
I will always resist.
We all got dark powers who've enfettered us.
I'm not speaking theoretically. Dark powers haven't fettered me from far beyond the mist. Wait. Oh, wait, no, unless... What if I'm the one who's fettered me? What if I'm the one who's fettered me? No.